Welcome into OutKick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Wednesdays, wherever you may be across this great country or this great land. We have got a lot to dive into, but I want to say right off the top right now, sports gambling is coming to Tennessee, and it's coming soon. If you want to be able to gamble the very first day that it's allowed, you need to go right now and register at fanduel.com/clay. That's fanduel.com/clay. You will be good to go. There are spectacular specials for new users that are coming. Again, it's going to launch soon. You'll get an email. You'll get a notification. I'll certainly tweet about it. Why not go ahead, download the app, and sign up at fanduel.com/clay. That goes if you are in Michigan as well. Both Michigan and Tennessee going to be live very, very soon. Already, if you're in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Iowa, Illinois, Colorado, Indiana, West Virginia, all of those states, you can already go sign up. But again, listen to me closely. If you are in Tennessee or Michigan, fanduel.com/clay. Any day now, they're going to flip the switch, and you are going to be able to officially gamble in the states of Tennessee and Michigan. fanduel.com/clay. Get logged in, get signed up. You'll get the best deal available out there. Also, go sign up for our OutKick VIP. I appreciate all of you for all the support that you are showing us as we continue to roll forward and dominate. Lots to get into. I'll start with the Titans being caught working out at Montgomery Bell Academy. It's a local private school. This happened last week, and I've known about it for a week because my son goes to school there, and he sat and watched, along with many of his other classmates, the workout. He came home, and he said, "Dad, I'm going to tell you something, but if I tell you, you can't write or talk about it until somebody else does first." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Dad, you can't break this story because everyone will know that I told you at school, and you can't break it." And I said, "All right, I won't break it." And he said, "The Titans were working out at NBA today." And so your boy, even though it's turned into a big story today, and even though it's been present for a week, Dad is going to keep his word. So I didn't say anything until it was broken today by Paul Kaharski, and it'll be a major story going forward. Titans were trying to stay in shape. They were trying to work out outside of their existing field, and they thought they were going to be playing last week, and they wanted to be ready to play against the Pittsburgh Steelers. My understanding is they haven't been working out in groups since last week as the positives continued to come. But this is what having kids does to you. You make promises all the time. Welcome to dad life. Big story. My son was an eyewitness, but I couldn't report on it because he goes to school at MBA, and he didn't want everybody to know that he had told me and that maybe the Titans would get in trouble because of my report. So Dad stayed back, didn't say a word, and kept my word to my son. But this is now a major story. The positive for the Titans is I think they're probably going to get fined. I think they may even lose a draft pick or so over this because they violated NFL rules. But I don't believe you can get a forfeit because the possibility of forfeiting for COVID wasn't out there as a reasonable penalty until the last couple of days. And my understanding is the Titans haven't continued to practice outside of the context of the facility since then. Now, I hope the positives go away in the short term, but that is my analysis of the latest with the Titans. The positive is all of the coaches, all the players who have tested positive have had absolutely no major issues associated with it. But Dad keeps his word. Big win for Dad, even though it was a big story. Big story as well. Just broken at OutKick by Ryan Glasspiegel, who is one of our writers. ESPN is very soon going to fire hundreds of workers because of business difficulties at the four-letter network. Now, there are a lot of really good people who work at ESPN. It's a challenging economic time for many people out there, regardless of what you do for a living. But I feel bad for those employees who are going to lose their jobs because one reason why ESPN ratings have tanked is because the sports world has gone woke and they have been cheerleading for it like crazy. NBA ratings have plummeted. ESPN has lost hundreds of millions of dollars because way fewer people are watching their signature programming of the NBA Finals. And so this is, I believe, a big story that is an unfortunate one. And I also think the COVID crisis has made a lot of these sports media companies realize how much potential extraneous cost they have, because a lot of their employees have been appearing from home and they haven't needed the big infrastructure of studios, production staff that they might have needed before. But I feel bad for everyone who is going to lose their jobs. But this is an example of what happens in many ways when you allow your primary focus to be lost and you are not continuing to cover sports as a sports network, as opposed to being ESPN, the farthest left-wing sports network you can possibly imagine. So that story has been broken by OutKick. You can go read it at outkick.com. Nice work on that story by Ryan Glasspiegel, one of our writers. He's at Sports Report on Twitter. A couple of other stories out there. Stephon Gilmore has tested positive for the New England Patriots. And let me say this. The Patriots are in a tough spot here because Cam Newton, their best offensive player, and now Stephon Gilmore, their best defensive player, have both tested positive. And there's a photo going viral today. Viral is an interesting phrase as well there, with Stephon Gilmore congratulating Patrick Mahomes after their Monday Night Football game. Dr. Chow, who writes really great columns at OutKick, has pointed out that this would not classify as a contact that is likely to lead to a positive test for Patrick Mahomes, because you have to be exposed for 15 minutes or longer, and theoretically that conversation between Gilmore and Patrick Mahomes only lasted for around a minute or two. And the interesting analogy that Dr. Chow has used to illustrate that is the difference between being out in the sun and getting sunburned. That viral exposure is a little bit like being out in the sun for too long. Even if it's a super hot day and even if it's very sunny, if you run outside for 5 minutes and come back inside, it's unlikely that you're going to get sunburned. It's prolonged exposure to the virus, much like it is prolonged exposure to the sun, that typically leads to an infection. So that picture that has gone viral of Patrick Mahomes is not likely to actually create any sort of substantial health-related issue for Patrick Mahomes. But the larger context here is we have created a situation by treating positive COVID tests as if they are incredibly serious that's fundamentally different than the way we treat, for instance, a seasonal flu diagnosis. Most players would try and play if they had the flu. They would go home until they felt better. Then they would come back to the facility. They'd probably take an IV. They would be treated in a way that would allow them to try and play with the flu. Yet the flu is more dangerous to your average young person, certainly to a high athlete, a well-conditioned athlete, than the COVID is. So why are we treating COVID like it is a death sentence when the flu, which is far more dangerous to young people, continues to be something that isn't at all as dangerous as the flu, and we're shutting down? And I keep hammering this because I think it's significant. If you are 0 to 19 years old and you contract COVID, you have a 99.997% chance to recover. If you are under 50 and you contract COVID, as almost everyone affiliated with an NFL team would be, you have a 99.98% chance of recovery. If you are under 70, as virtually every NFL coach and player would be, you have a 99.5% chance of being fine, and that doesn't even factor in that your average NFL player and your average NFL coach is healthier than the average person of their age would be based on their own physical condition. So I do think the entire presumption that we are operating under of we have to shut down these teams when there are positive tests, I don't know that I agree with that at all. And I think this is an example of the Corona Bros winning a battle that the data actually doesn't reflect they should have ever won. A positive test case is really not a very big deal, particularly when almost all of these positive test cases are asymptomatic. In other words, the players wouldn't even know they had them unless they had these tests on a daily basis. Bill O'Brien is out with the Texans. And there's a spicy story out there as well that J.J. Watt got into it with Bill O'Brien, and that's one of the reasons why Bill O'Brien has actually been fired. That was the last straw, and Bill O'Brien's relationship with his star players, whether it's DeAndre Hopkins, whether it is other players that he has shipped away over the years, was finally the difference maker for why Cal McNair decided to go ahead and fire him. So this is an interesting battle. The Texans finally stood with one of their stars. Remember, they lost Jadeveon Clowney because he couldn't get along with Bill O'Brien. They lost DeAndre Hopkins because he couldn't get along with Bill O'Brien. And Deshaun Watson didn't seem that broken up about the idea that Bill O'Brien is gone. So the Texans are a bit of a mess at 0-4 as they get ready for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It will be interesting to see how Romeo Crennel does taking over there. Dwayne Haskins, first-round pick, has now been benched after 13 starts by the Washington football team by Ron Rivera. Not only has he been benched, he's been dropped to third string behind Kyle Allen and Alex Smith, who is working back from his injury. Ron Rivera said, hey, we could potentially win this division. We're sitting at 1-3, and I don't think we can win it with Dwayne Haskins. That now means that Dwayne Haskins is probably done as a Washington football team member. And so it will be interesting to see whether he follows sort of the wandering path like we have seen happen with Josh Rosen, who was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals, was there for 1 year, then was kicked to the curb, was with the Miami Dolphins, then was kicked to the curb there now. And most of you don't even know where Josh Rosen is, but I believe I am correct in saying he's now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on his third team in 3 years. Dwayne Haskins, that experience, there's no loyalty to him from Ron Rivera, who is a new coach. And we talked about this before in terms of what would happen with Washington. Well, it only took 4 games of him as the starting quarterback in order for Ron Rivera to be willing to move on. Howard Stern has reportedly been offered $120 million a year from SiriusXM. Your boy is always happy. When radio people make gobs of money, when media people make gobs of money, I want people to make as much money as possible, just like athletes do. I want a rising tide to lift all boats. I want Skip Bayless to make a ton of money. I want Colin Cowherd and Stephen A. Smith to make a ton of money. Because guess what? I want to make a ton of money off my labor too. So props to Howard Stern on the largest radio contract potentially, even though he's saying he's not sure that the offer is there or that it's going to happen in maybe the history of radio that will ever exist. $120 million doesn't stink. Positive news out of the state of Florida, where Ron DeSantis, I believe, has been the best governor of dealing with COVID out there. Even though you got people praising Andrew Cuomo, even though you got people giving all sorts of genuflections at the altar of Phil Murphy and Michigan's governor, Gretchen Whitmer, and the guy in Pennsylvania, Wolf, all of them are being praised, even though they have an infinitely higher death rate than Florida, while Ron DeSantis is getting killed, while Greg Abbott's getting killed, while Ducey out in Arizona has been ridiculed. Florida has become the first state to allow full stadiums, if local authorities will permit it, in the entirety of the country. Full football stadiums. Miami Dolphins, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jacksonville Jaguars. In theory, all of them could have full stadiums starting as soon as next weekend, I believe. And this is a big deal for the University of Florida, for Miami, for South Florida, for Florida State, for all of these different colleges as well, because theoretically they could have full stadiums. And it could be a big deal for the Florida versus Georgia world's largest outdoor cocktail party. They could have a full stadium there in Jacksonville if it were allowed as well. This is an important return to normalcy. It doesn't make any sense to not allow full football stadiums if you're going to have tens of thousands of people allowed to protest in the streets wherever you want to go, largely peaceful protest. This is, I think, a big deal. Props to Governor Ron DeSantis for making this decision. The hurricane is coming. Hurricane Delta is coming. I think it went right through the Yucatan Peninsula, hit all over Mexico. It's a beautiful area down there. I don't know how bad the damage has been. I haven't been watching the news, but I know it was supposed to hit there today. And now the expectation is it's going to come up and be a Category 3 or a Category 4 and hit Louisiana, which is already suffering from the last hurricane that hit there. One of our employees works down there and has been dealing with great difficulties. They are moving the Mizzou LSU game, which was scheduled to be in Baton Rouge. It's now taking place in Columbia. My gambling picks are up on the OutKick website. You can go check them out. You can make your own picks at fanduel.com/clay. But again, Mizzou is going to be hosting this game. LSU is moving on. There have been a lot of moving parts associated with this season already, and it's going to be a challenge for many people in college football and the NFL to get their sporting events in. My best to everybody down along the Gulf Coast. It's a beautiful place. I love it there, and I spend a lot of my free time down along the Gulf Coast, and I'm sad to hear what might be going on down there. Speaking of the Gulf Coast, I do want to thank all of our new affiliates. We have a lot of people who are abandoning ESPN for radio, and they are now adding OutKick and Fox Sports Radio, potentially places that have had ESPN radio affiliation for up to 20 years. I want to welcome in, I was just mentioning the Gulf Coast, the Fan 101.1 FM. If you're watching in Pensacola, Florida, or along the Gulf Coast, we're excited to have them. You can now hear the whole show in Crossville, Tennessee, McMinnville, Tennessee, in Jackson, Michigan, and on the Badger Radio affiliate. They loved that I was fighting for the Big Ten for them. You can now hear that all 3 hours of the show in Madison, Wisconsin on Fox Sports 1070. So a bunch of different news stations there, all flipping from ESPN to us. That is going to be a great addition, and there's a lot more of that to come. I appreciate all of you who are listening to the radio show every single day. Like I said, our podcast numbers were up 360% in September over September of 2019. Finally, Adam Silver has acknowledged what I have been telling you for some time, which is the NBA playoff ratings are an unmitigated disaster. And the NBA Finals in particular are the worst part of that unmitigated disaster. And so, as you run through and check out all of the data on the collapsing ratings for the NBA, they're noticing. Adam Silver said the other day that when the new season in the NBA starts, they would be eliminating the social justice warrior messages on jerseys. They would be eliminating Black Lives Matter from the basketball court. I don't know if they'd go back to standing for the national anthem or not, but it has been an unmitigated disaster for their brand. Get woke, go broke indeed. And as a result, the NBA is reversing course in rapid order. The NBA players are going to have to recognize what it's like to lose 50% of their salaries. All of that moving in a rapid fashion towards a return to somewhat of normalcy. I just don't know if the fans are going to come back after the way that the NBA has actually alienated them. Let me give you a live update here on the Braves game. Chop on. The Braves are up. Let's see. We got base runners on. Nice throw from Markakis right there to just force the runner at second. And the Braves, I believe, are up 2-0 right now in the 8th inning, moving towards their 4th consecutive, I don't want to jinx them, but moving rapidly towards their 4th consecutive postseason playoff win. If you ever wondered how wild 2020 was, the Braves suddenly can't lose, again, knock on wood, in the postseason. Hopefully they're going to be able to hang on here and get the dub. I appreciate all of you. Encourage you to go download the podcast. Go subscribe to fanduel.com/clay and get hooked up if you're in Tennessee or Michigan for the launch of sports gambling in those states. superb offers coming your way soon. Again, FanDuel.com/Clay. I love all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. We need more of you in the OutKick VIP. Go sign up today at OutKick.com. I am Clay Travis. This has been OutKick the Coverage on Fox Sports Radio. Kisses for the haters, and everybody stay healthy down in the Gulf Coast with the hurricane coming. I love all you. We'll be live on Fox Bet Live here in about a half hour. I'll see you then. Bye.